Production. And when seen underneath a microscope, bacteria look like tiny bags, and they generally consist of an outer cell wall that contains liquid called protoplasm. Once again, bacterial growth and reproduction. And being with bacterial growth and reproduction, they generally consist of an outer wall cell, and that outer wall cell is a liquid and it's called protoplasm. And bacteria cells manufacture their own food through what they absorb from the surrounding environment. They give off waste, they produce growth, and reproduce. The life cycle of bacteria consists of two distinguished phases. It's considered the active stage and the inactive stage. So I'll kind of sort of explain. Active stage is meaning that they're constantly active. It don't sleep, it don't relax, they constantly active. Like considered, like I explained, COVID. COVID need a host, they go from one body to the next, and being that is one body to the next, that's considered your active stage. Then you have your inactive stage. Your inactive stage is a bacteria that kind of sort of rests. They're in their resting stage. And being that they're in their resting stage, they can sit and they can rest, they can go to sleep, and then next thing you know it, they're up and at it again. So I'm gonna ask you, why do you think certain bacteria are in the resting stage? What do you think they're doing if they're in their resting stage?
Mutating or multiplying?
Right, exactly. So certain bacteria, when they're in their resting stage, they're mutating, they're getting stronger, they're reproducing, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And that's what that means. So the active stage is during bacteria that grow and reproduce. Bacteria multiply best in warm, dark, damp, and dirty places. That's where most bacteria in the active stage like to feed off, but it likes to feed off of warm, dark, dirty places. Okay? When conditions are favorable, bacteria grow and reproduce. When they reach their largest size, they divide it into two new cells. So when certain bacteria will grow to the point where it have to subdivide and break up, because it's what you call
Mitosis?
yeah, exactly, mitosis. Okay, and when they reach their largest size, they divide into two new cells. This division is called binary fission. These cells that are formed are called daughter cells and are produced every 20 to 60 minutes.
My
Once
God.
again, binary fission, they are produced every 20 to 60 minutes depending on bacteria. So you see how fast they're reproducing? That's just like us. We are women, and being that we are women, and you know, like your menstrual is the purpose to take and be able to cleanse your body out so you can create eggs to reproduce. Okay, so that's the same thing with the your bacteria. So the infection pathogen staph undergoes cell division every 27 to 30 minutes. So staph grows every 27 to 30 minutes. And staph is a bacteria that causes what? Staphylococcus. What does staph cause? Blood poisoning.
Yeah.
It causes blood poisoning. That's what staphylococcus causes, is blood poisoning. Okay? And they undergo cell division every 27 to 30 minutes. When conditions become unfavorable and difficult for them to thrive, bacteria either die or become inactive. Okay? Inactive and spore forming stage. Certain bacteria, such as anthrax and tetanus, coat themselves with a wax-like outer shell. So remember, certain bacteria has a coat-like outer shell. And that coat-like outer shell, just think of a turtle. And think of a turtle, and they have that shell. And that's their protectiveness. And so the same thing with bacteria. Bacteria coat themselves with wax-like outer cells. These bacteria are able to withstand long periods of venom, dryness, and unsuitable temperatures. In this stage, spores can be blown about and are not harmed by disinfectant, heat, or cold. So could you imagine that? Could you imagine the bacteria that cannot be affected through heat or cold? Because certain colds kill temperature too. So also heat, because if the temperature drops to a certain degree, and like where you live at in Pennsylvania, going up further north, the more you go up north, the colder it gets. And being at a cold, and then if it drops down to a certain degree and we go into minus temperature, that can also kill bacteria too. Because certain bacteria can't live in cold like we can. We can't withstand anything below 100 or whatever. I'm just like hypothetically speaking. And same thing with heat. We cannot stand but so much of the heat, because if the temperature rises, we know heat can kill, and same thing, cold can kill, depending on the minus of the coldness. So same thing with your bacteria. And this type of bacteria, they can withstand heat or cold. And when favorable conditions are restored, the spore change into active form and begin to grow and reproduce. So picture that. Picture that a bacteria that has a wax and a hard-like outer shell, and it cannot, you can't kill it through heat or cold. So being that you can't kill it through heat or cold, it's sitting there, and with it sitting there, it's waiting for it to like, okay, it's time for me to come out now, because that heat or cold can't touch me. And now they'll be able to grow and reproduce. Now, bacteria infections. There can be no bacteria infections without the presence of pathogen bacteria. Therefore, if pathogen bacteria are eliminated, clients cannot become infected. You may have a client who has tissue inflammation. Once again, inflammation. Inflammation is a condition in which the body reacts to injury, irritation, or infection. Inflammation is characterized by redness, heat, pain, and swelling. So with you being an aesthetic student, you can run across somebody when you're doing their facial, and you can run across with somebody that has inflammation in the skin. And being that they have inflammation in the skin, the signs of the inflammation of the skin is swelling, red, irritation. So are you going to work on a client that has that type of condition? I'm asking you, I can't hear you.
What you asking?
I was asking you on inflammation. Inflammation, you are an aesthetic student, and being that you are an aesthetic student and you get ready to do a facial and the client has inflammation, and the inflammation is caused.
We cannot do nothing, because
Right.
this is dangerous.
Right.
We can spread infections.
Right.
There is several position when we cannot to do facial and we should to refuse client.
Right, exactly.
For example, if we see herpes on the lips, we can do nothing in active herpes phases. Inflammation same. If we see redness or swallow,
Swelling,
yes,
right. Heat and
and
pain.
pus maybe we can to touch.
Right, exactly. Now, pus is a fluid created by infection. So it contains white blood cells, bacteria, and dead cells. The presence of pus is a sign of a bacteria infection. So everybody have had some type of infection, like if you was cooking, and with you cooking, some hot water, hot grease popped on the skin, and being that it popped on the skin, it caused inflammation, and once it caused inflammation, that inflammation could turn into a bacteria if you don't treat it right. Same thing with mosquito bites. I'm quite sure we all have mosquito bites, and no matter how much they tell you, don't scratch, don't scratch, you're constantly scratching because the mosquito bite is irritating you, and being that it's irritating you, you're constantly scratching, and with you constantly scratching, that can cause some type of infection and bacteria. So that's why, you'll start seeing the redness, the swollenness from the mosquito bite. And you don't want to inflame the skin anymore, because you got to remember, can you tell me what is the most inner layer of the skin? Did you study the skin yet?
Most which layer?
What is the most inner layer of the skin?
Inner.
The inner layer, meaning under.
Subcutaneous. This is most of inner.
What?
Subcutaneous.
Huh? Did you go into the skin yet?
We have epidermis, then we have dermis, and then we have subcutaneous.
Right. So the most inner layer of the skin is considered the dermis, and the outer layer of the skin is considered the epidermis. Okay? So that's a good thing. You know that a local infection such as a pimple or abscess is confined as a particular part of the body and appears as a lesion containing pus. Streptococcus are among the most common bacteria that affects the human and are normally carried by a third of the population. And staph bacteria can be picked up on doorknobs, countertops, and other surfaces. But in the salon, they are more frequently spread through skin-to-skin contact, such as shaking hands, or through the use of unclean tools or implements. If these bacteria get into the wrong place, they can be very dangerous. Although lawsuits are rare considering the number of services performed in the salon, every year many salons are sued for allegedly causing staph infection. So staph infections is very common, and you can pick that up anywhere, and especially in the hospitals you can pick up staph infections. Even riding the trains, because when you ride the trains and you see the seats, the poles, all of that, billions and billions and billions of bacteria that you cannot see. And so you got to remember, bacteria, microorganisms, pathogens can only be seen through a microscope. And being that it can only be seen through a microscope, they are really active, okay? And same thing with a lot of different people coming from, coming migrating into this country, and they carrying a lot of different bacterias, and vice versa. So certain parts of the country, that's why if you travel into another country, they won't allow you. You can bring a lot of things back, but one thing you cannot bring back is fruits. You cannot bring back fruits. And fruits, remember, there are, can you tell me how does bacteria, it's two parts of bacteria. It's what? Plant and animal.
Oh, yeah.
You have plant and animal for your bacteria. Because I was explaining yesterday that, plants carry a lot of bacteria, they carry a lot of parasites. And being that they carry parasites, the same thing with animal. Animal carry parasites. So, staff is responsible for food poisoning. Like yesterday with Sine, she was sick, she went and she ate red meat, and with her eating red meat, she wound up with food poisoning. And being that she wound up with food poisoning, that was some type of bacteria, parasite that was in that animal, or the way the food was handled. So you have to be careful when you handle food, when you're doing cross-contamination. You have to be careful when you're going from red meat to chicken, or chicken to whatever, because a lot of times you see recalls on certain foods, and they're called back chicken. There's been times that they said chicken has carried salmonella poisoning, and being it carries salmonella poisoning, that is really a bad bacteria.
E. coli.
E. coli, exactly. Those are really bad bacterias, okay? Some types of infection, staph bacteria are highly resistant to convenient treatment such as antibiotics. An example is of staph infection is called MRSA. MRSA occur most frequently among persons with weak immune systems or among people who have undergone medical treatment. Now, your immune system is so important. So when COVID came out, and when COVID came out, everybody came up with all different types of things, and your immune system is so important because they say take vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. They say for you to take vitamin D. So when you keep your immune system up, your immune system helps fight off a lot of bacteria. So whatever is trying to invade into your body, your immune system helps. And I'm going to tell you how very good vitamin C is. Vitamin C is so good that it's years that the pharmaceutical has been fighting they want vitamin C to become a prescription. That's how very good vitamin C is. So the pharmaceutical, the Food and Drug Administration, they're all been fighting for many years because see, you don't hear about these things. And being that you don't hear about these things, they're trying to make vitamin C for you to only get it through a prescription. Because being that you get it through a prescription, that means that they have control. And being that they have control over your own immune system. So, and also a lot of those billionaires, they're buying up a lot of farmland. And with them buying up a lot of farmland, I'm trying to figure out why is Bill Gates, all these billionaires is buying up all this farmland, and what's going on is that they can be able to control the people with food. And being that they can be able to control the people with food, that's like, wow, so deep. So, with the weak immune system, so that's the same thing with COVID. So with COVID, a lot of people that wind up with COVID, and they found out that a lot of them had some type of underlying health problems, because a lot of them that had either high blood pressure, they was a diabetic, or they had cancer, or they had kidney disease. So most of the people that died from COVID had some type of underlying health problem, and being that they had some type of underlying health problem, their immune system wasn't strong enough to help fight. So this is what they're talking about. Certain antibiotics can even help you. So with the immune system among people who have undergone medical procedures, today it has become more common in otherwise healthy people. Clients who appear completely healthy may bring this organism into the salon where it can affect others. Some people carry the bacteria and are not even aware of their infection, and which is true, because with you being an aesthetic student and with you being a cosmetology student, you will never know who's HIV, you would never know who has hepatitis A, hepatitis B, C, who have AIDS, because they walk and look just like us. And being that they walk and you don't know what's going on the inside of the body. So this is why you have to learn the chemistry of the body. And once you learn the chemistry of the body, you will be able to identify certain things with your client. So when you're doing somebody's hair and you feel their hair, you can be able to feel if they're on medication, you can be able to feel if they're on drugs, you can be able to see if they stress, you can be able to see if they have a nervous problem, because everything comes up through the hair. And same thing with the skin. Everything comes up through the skin. So what's going on the inside comes on the outside. Okay? So, some people carry the bacteria not even aware of the infection, but the people they affect may show obvious symptoms. MRSA initially appears as a skin infection, such as pimples, rashes, boils, that can be difficult to cure. Without proper treatment, the infections become symptomatic and can have devastating consequences that can result in death. Because of these highly resistant bacteria strains, it is important to clean and disinfect all tools and implements used in the salon. You owe it to yourself and your client also. Do not perform services if the client's skin, scalp, neck, hands, feet show visible signs of abrasions or infections. We know that. Certain things is common sense. Certain things is common sense. You just don't touch people's hair if it's not, if you examine and looking at their scalp, and if you see open, because I remember when I was in school, in beauty school, and there's a part where you have to work on a clinic floor. So once you finish a certain amount of hours, you have to work on clients. So you have to do so many blow dries, so many haircuts. So there was a little girl that came in. Naturally, you check and look between their scalp, and behold, she had an egg nesting of lice sitting in her scalp, and it was about to hatch. And I was like, oh my God, no way. And you can see it, boom, 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 boom. And such a beautiful little girl. And she had this in her head, in her scalp. And I called my teacher over, and she was like, oh, we have to hurry up to get her out of here real fast. Where's her mother? Let's call her mother and get her out of here. Yeah, so I felt so bad for her. I really did. So it's very important to make sure you analyze, you look and see. Because sometimes you can't see things. That's why when I'm teaching you haircut, you can't see everything up close. You got to step back. That's why I always tell you, step back. Tell me what you see. Because everything you can't see if it's close up on you. It's like that saying, you know how you misplace your keys or whatever, and you misplace your keys, it's like, wow, if it was a snake, it could have bit me, because it's right there in front of your face. So sometimes you gotta step back, especially when you're doing hair, and also when you're doing skin. And sometimes you can see more things visually when you can step away from it. And you know, the same as you see up close. Because everybody think if you're looking up close, you get to see everything. Sometimes you just can't, okay? So, when a disease spreads from one person to another, it is said to be a contagious disease, okay? Also known as communicable disease, okay? Now, that's common sense knowing that if I have a cold, and with me having a cold, I'm sneezing and coughing on you, that's communicable, you know? Same thing, I always said that COVID, you would think, I would always think in the year 2020, and when 2020 hit, we always talked about flying cars, These are the things you're gonna see, because I know when I was younger, they was talking about in the year 2000, the world's gonna come to an end and all this craziness. But when COVID came, you would expect for you to see technology to the point where you're gonna see flying cars and da 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 da. What they doing? They teaching us how to wash our hands in the year 2020, which you should already know. Washing your hands is something that comes from home. You should know when you go use the bathroom, you should know that when you was a little kid to wash your hands. But I've seen some craziness. Some of the more common contagious diseases that prevent a salon professional from serving the client are common cold, ringworm, conjunctivitis, which is pink eye, viral infections, and natural nail, toe, or foot infections. Okay, so that's the same thing with when you're doing nails, and when you're doing nails, a lot of them were getting nail fungus on the nail, and being that they was getting nail fungus on the nail, and when you do the nail extension, and you can't allow air to come in between, because there's a certain way that they have to do nail. Because if you notice when they applying an extension nail, they don't hold your finger this way to apply the nail. They hold it down this way. So they hold it down in a 45-degree angle, because that prevents air from getting in between your nail plate and the nail extension. And remember, where does bacteria grow?
Dark, damp spaces.
Right, so you got warm, dark space in between in here and this nail, especially if you put your hand in water and that becomes damp, and that's how you can get nail infection. And right, so especially under the fingernails and the webs between the fingers, be sure to always wash your hands after using the restroom, before eating. All of that is common sense. Okay, so I'm not even going to go into the common sense of things, okay? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop right here. And with the stopper right here, I'm going to review and go over again to see if you know what's the difference between a pathogen. You explain to me what's non-pathogen. What is considered non-pathogen? Savannah. Non-pathogen.
Not pathogen. Not pathogen which don't give disease.
Right.
Pathogen very contagious and give to humans disease.
Okay. Now, what is a can you give me an example of a non-pathogen bacteria?
Like inactive
Because-
bacteria?
Non-pathogenic. Because you have certain bacteria that are harmful and
Lactobacteria, for example, not pathogen. Lactobacteria, they help to, they work as enzyme for our stomach, and they are not pathogen.
Right. But you have non-pathogen and pathogen bacteria. So non-pathogen are bacteria that are considered harmless to us, but they can also be a bacteria, and being that it's a bacteria, it can help us, and being that it can help us, that is helpful to us. You have pathogens, you have bacterias, and bacterias, some are harmful to us and some are not. And the ones that are not harmful to us is cheese, yogurt. Those are considered bacteria that are considered less harmful to our bodies. So when we eat cheese, when we eat yogurt, when we eat, those are considered bacteria that helps our body. Penicillin, those are considered yogurt. Those are medicines. And then you have pathogenic bacteria. So pathogenic bacteria, those are the ones that is harmful to our bodies. And for an example of a pathogenic bacteria would be what?
The cocci, like this, are you talking
It's-
about those or just like
Any,
in general?
just in general.
The E. coli.
Yeah, E. coli, those are bacteria that's harmful. Anything that will try to kill us, those are considered harmful bacteria. Okay? And what shape is Priscilla? Priscilla is what? Priscilla.
Short rod shaped.
Yeah, short rod shape. And Priscilla does what? What type of bacteria? You can look at your notes.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what
I know.
was on there. Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis. Right. Priscilla produce tuberculosis. And which bacteria cause STDs? Sexually transmitted.
Sporella.
Spirella. Now, staph. Is Staphylococcus, is it pus forming?
Staphylos.
Staph is pus forming. And what shape is staph?
Round,
Huh?
round,
Is round?
Grows in bunches.
It grows in bunches. Corksy is the one that are considered round shaped and they grow singular or in a group. Which one grows like a string of beads?
The streptococcus.
Right. Okay, that grows like a string of beads. Which one grows like a bunches of grapes?
staphylococcus,
Okay, right. And what does it cause? What does it cause?
Boils.
Boils and bustles. And what are you give me two of your infection controls. Name two of your infection controls. Name two, Savannah.
hospital disinfections and tuberculosis disinfections.
No, not your EPA. That's your EPA. There are 4 infection controls. These are
Bacteria, viruses, fungus, and parasites.
okay, yes, exactly. And what is mobility?
How bacteria moves.
Exactly. Mobility is how bacteria moves. And what flagella? How does flagella move? And cilia?
It's the little hairs on the bacilli and spirilla, and it's like hair-like extensions that helps that bacteria move through liquid.
Very good. Good stuff. Good stuff. And tell me, what bacteria has a hard outer shaping and has a white coating that not even heat or cold can kill it?
Inactive.
Huh?
Inactive. I don't know if you want me to answer. or
He's
Go back and forth. I'm like,
yeah, I'm going for it. Right. Binary vision.
What do you?
Binary vision. It's binary vision, and being that is in the binary vision, and then also they reproduce. And it reproduced, and then also there was one more thing. Anthrax coat themselves out of it was oh, certain bacteria grow, you can look underneath a microscope and they have tiny bags and they generally consist of an outer cell wall that contains liquid called what?
Wait, repeat that. So sorry.
when seen under a microscope, bacteria look like tiny bags, and they generally consist of an outer cell wall that contains liquid called what?
Cytoplasm?
Yeah, protoplasm. Right.
Oh, protoplasm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Protoplasm, you're right.